Harry, we are seeing some team.
네, 안녕하세요. 매일매일 운동하기를 실천하고 있는 동타왕코입니다. 오늘은 5월 6일 목요일이죠. 날씨는 좋았고요. 좀 약간 흐리긴 한데 와, 지금 하늘 너무 이쁩니다, 여러분. 석양이랑 구름에 싹 껴면서 그렇다고요. 운동해야지. 너무 졸리네요, 갑자기. 스쿼트를 하려고 했는데 허리가 살짝 아픈 것 같아서 일단 스트레칭 위주로 하고 팔굽혀 펴기를 하도록 하겠습니다. 운동할 땐 CNA죠.
Sections, California and New York, at least 51% in the state of California had at least one dose so far. In New York, it's 48%. But look down here in Texas and Georgia. Look at this. Just 39% of the population has at least one dose. In Texas, just 36% of it down in the state of Georgia.
In some ways, Harry, none of this is really a surprise in terms of what we're seeing in behavior and decisions that are being made, right?
Yeah, so look, I guess it isn't so surprising that Texas and Atlanta are the two top right now, or 1 and 3 in terms of attendance so far. Because look at this. Whether or not you socially distanced in the last week, the people who are not likely to vaccinate, just 46% of them have said that they have socially distanced in the last week. And this is something I think is very interesting. That is, the people who are not likely to get the vaccine are the least likely to social distance at this point, versus those who've been fully vaccinated, 65%, those partially are likely to vaccinate, 73%. And so this is the big divide, which is if you're not likely to vaccinate, you're actually far more likely to go out, which is kind of scary a little bit.
It's like, I'm not really interested in doing much to help. It's like, that's the statement being made.
They don't believe the science. I mean, let's just state it for what it is. They don't believe the science. They're willing to go out there, even though they're not vaccinated, basically saying, screw it, we don't care what exactly we deliver.
Arian, thank you for being with us.
Thank you, sir.
So coming up, a Capitol police officer slamming lawmakers for whitewashing the violence he experienced firsthand during the insurrection. Plus, one alleged rioter now facing charges thanks to his gossiping grandmother.
People watching from all corners of the globe can understand why what happens in Africa has a huge impact on all of our lives in ways we might never even know. Because of my background, I am well aware of the vibrancy of this continent, and I want to show that to the world. People of my continent do deserve to be heard. We are rich in ways beyond the soil beneath our feet.
One World with Shane Ashton.
하늘 너무 이쁩니다.
with Julia Cassidy tonight on CNN.
I'm Jim Americas, and this is CNN.
I experienced a group of individuals that were trying to kill me to accomplish, their goal. And I think that sorry, Don. Man, I didn't think I'd get this emotional. I experienced the most brutal, savage, hand-to-hand combat of my entire life, let alone my policing career, which spans almost 2 decades.
That was police officer Michael Fanone telling CNN last week about the emotional and the physical trauma that he and his fellow officers suffered during the insurrection on the Capitol. Officer Fanone has now written an open letter to all elected officials in the U.S. demanding they fully recognize officers and their actions and slamming those who continue to downplay the riot. CNN's Whitney Wild joins us now. His is a fascinating perspective. You can see how much he is still so affected by what happened.
And I think these stories are so important to tell because sometimes, words seem like they're just going out into the universe with no impact. And this shows that there were real people who were impacted by these words, and we can never forget that when we're talking about this January 6th riot. Officer Fanone was beaten and electrocuted by the mob numerous times. He actually experienced a heart attack as a result of that. In this open letter, he writes that he is still grappling with the effects of that day, writing in part, "I also struggle with the anxiety of hearing those who continue to downplay the events of that day and those who would ignore them altogether with their lack of acknowledgement. The indifference shown to my colleagues and I is a disgrace." Fanone did not name anyone directly, but some members of Congress, as well as former President Donald Trump, have sought to minimize the viciousness of that riot, Brianna.
And there's a new suspect, right? A New Jersey man who is now facing charges after a pretty interesting way that led to this.
The gossip circle.
The gossip circle.
Circles right back to the FBI.
It's never good, although apparently here it was.
So here's what happened. So his mother was actually speaking with a family friend, discussing his role in the January 6th riot, saying he was there. The family friend's granddaughter caught wind of this, took that information to the FBI, and as we know, this was one of the most documented massive crimes in history, and so the FBI was able to use surveillance video and other methods to identify this person. He's now facing a list of charges, Brianna. We have not, CNN has not reached out to his attorney, but his attorney declined to speak with a New Jersey outlet on Tuesday. So this actually represents what we've seen a lot, which is gossip getting back to the FBI, and then that resulting in charges. So it's amazing people want to brag about having committed crimes, but here we are.
That's right. They're proud of it, it seems, in some cases, perhaps this one as well. Whitney, thank you so much for that. Conservatives claim that they're being silenced, but right-wing hosts are actually dominating American social media feeds. We'll have a fact check next.
Imagine we could create a web of connectivity of operating rooms all around the world.
If you invent something, that would be that forever.
I see many companies' own technology helping us to address the gaps we have in healthcare delivery.
I'm Nikki Shields for CNN Saved by the Future, where we see how today's inventors are engineering medical marvels for tomorrow and beyond.
Saved by the Future, Saturday on CNN, in association with Hyundai. Across Africa, businesses are working together like never before. All new on CNN, Connecting Africa.
Join me and Lenny Jocas as we crisscross the continent to show you how new connections are revolutionizing commerce in Africa. This month, connecting Africa through agriculture.
How do we see productivity widespread across all the African countries and also boost intra-trade?
All new Saturday on CNN, in association with Afrexim Bank.
We share this place. We all belong.
The Facebook Oversight Board confirmed that the social media company can keep blocking former President Donald Trump from using his platform for now. Conservative critics are screaming that this is about silencing conservative voices.
The silencing of conservatives online continues as Facebook gets the green light to keep blocking President Trump's account for now.
What do you think the vote was?
I don't know what that was. I mean, it might have been 19-0.
I don't know.
Given the woke wave in America, who thinks they're going to decide otherwise?
This story is much bigger than just one person. It's about tech oligarchs manipulating the political conversation and debate.
Fox News alert. A bunch of left-wing journalists, activists, and lawyers don't like Trump. Didn't see that one coming.
That was delivered really cleverly there. Joining us now to discuss, CNN senior media reporter Oliver Darcy. Oliver, look, I actually think there are very legitimate questions about the social media companies and how they deal with dangerous speech and other things going forward. However, if their goal is to silence conservative voices, they've been doing a really bad job of it.
Yeah, John, what you just played is actually pretty standard fare in right-wing media. These conservatives believe and have believed for some time that platforms like Facebook, like Twitter, are biased against them, that they hate free speech, that they're censoring conservative voices. But like you point out, the data doesn't really bear that out. For one, there's no data that shows that these platforms are systemically biased against conservatives. But if you dig deeper in, it actually shows quite the opposite. There's a list that goes out every single day from the New York Times' Kevin Roose, and it shows the top 10 most performing links on Facebook. And every single day, if you look at that list, it's dominated by right-wing commentators, folks like Ben Shapiro, Dan Bongino, Sean Hannity. They dominate this list. And so look, if you're not inciting insurrections, if you're not saying COVID is fake, you can do quite well on these platforms as a conservative. We talk about Trump being no longer allowed on this platform. That does not mean that Trumpism isn't allowed on this platform. It's actually doing quite well.
9 out of the top 10 shared links there were from the right. So the idea that they're being silenced on social media just doesn't bear out. The facts just simply don't bear that out. Nevertheless, after the Facebook decision, which again, I got a lot of issues with Facebook, but after the Facebook decision, those facts that we just talked about, it didn't keep people quiet.
No, and if you look at what's going on in conservative media, John, it's a lot of sanitizing of the Capitol riots, the January 6th insurrection. They don't want to talk about Trump's role in that and what happened on that day. They'd much rather portray Trump as the victim, despite him using Facebook, using these platforms to incite this riot. They rather portray him as the victim for being booted from the platform for the role he played.
Oliver Darcy, great to see you. Be very close to you. Not too close, but somewhat close to you. Great to see you. So Secretary Blinken sitting down with America's critical allies in Ukraine, what he just said about the U.S. response to Russian aggression.
Plus, a New Jersey man stranded in India as the country records the highest daily surge in coronavirus cases ever. His story coming up.
This is the 100 Club. Our look at companies that are 100 years old or older. The story of Steinway & Sons began in Germany in 1836 when cabinet maker Henry Engelhard Steinway made his very first. It would take nearly 2 decades before he would go on to start the company known today,